Right. I think it's easier to go on your own presentation than to do another presentation. Right. I've been asked to do quite to raise quite a difficult question, and are we moving towards a world price for meat? You would have asked me that for dairy. I think the answer would have been very clear. Yes, it was very easy, and at the moment, most of the dairy price are moving together, and they are really correlated to the export price made by Fonterra. But as you know, meat industry is much more difficult to get a grasp on. It's much more fragmented industry, much more complex industry than the dairy one. So I will try now to present you some of our thoughts. And first of all, please don't think we've got the answer. I think at the moment we're just at the beginning. We've seen that price formation has undergone major changes over the years, especially since 2007, 2008, and we think that they're going up. And so I will try to tackle this issue of are we moving towards a world price for meat through three different topics. The first one is price as an incentive or disincentive. Then the next is price and related to cost, and then we'll see price related to what. And I think that's the key question for the future. And the final point before starting my presentation, I really want to be sure that you've got nothing against graphs, statistics, but as I've seen for the previous speakers, I think you're not allergic to that because most of you have remained here, so we should continue. So, first of all, I want to go through some key points, and which are not really related just to meat, but are really general to the overall market, and I think everyone will recognize this kind of observation. And I think the first one, and the food world has completely changed since 2007, and something has happened in 2007, and the world now is not the same as it was before. And as I was saying, in the dairy sector, and you can't manage a company now as you were managing it in the past. I think it's a different world. We are in a different world. The second point, and we've seen a small part in the previous presentation, all commodity prices are potentially the object of short-term speculation. You've got a vast amount of world liquidity present in the market, and because we are going through a growing market transparency, that will have an impact in the price and cost of production. We've got also new links that's been forged between prices in related sectors, and leading to a coming together of prices within food sectors, as we've got high volatility, increased volatility, as we've seen before, and also as geography become absolutely less important. But, and there is always a but with the meat, the world pig meat and beef supply chain is still highly fragmented, far from transparent. So I think the key question is how far along the road of this globalization are we at the moment? But at least the question is not, are we or not? I think we are on that road. I think the main question is where we are, because the signs are there that we are on that road. So let's start with graphs. So what I've done here, I've plotted the deflated local currency pig prices with a base year in 2000 going up to 2011. And here you can see the real price paid to farmers or to pig producer of the what I call traditional pig producer countries. Sorry, and we can see that it's really a bleak picture, and they haven't increased their price in real terms for quite a long time. And but if you superpose the Russian price, the Brazilian price, and the Chinese price, there you've got a completely different story, and they've been able to create significantly more value in cash than the old countries. And since the pig meat market is relatively economical efficient, and these two two trends have an impact on production. And as you can see here, where you've got high pig price, you've got high production growth. And on the contrary, where you've got a low pig price, you've got low production. I think everybody was expecting that kind of graph. I think it's absolutely normal. But if you compare to pig with cattle, and I think it's a completely different picture. And you can add also Brazil, you can add Russia, increasing price. But at the same time, what you are saying is the beef production is decreasing in every country. So even where the price were going up, you were not seeing any production increase in these countries. So it worked for pork, doesn't work for beef. This is starting point where you've got different type of meat working differently in the market. So for cattle here, you've got different criteria which are far more important than price. And for example, it's the cost, which has gone up tremendously for the cattle production, mainly the land cost. And at the moment, it's much more profitable to go to arable land and farming, and it's absolutely less risky than the cattle production. This is a quite important graph, and here we're going to look at this is in real terms, in real dollars terms, and not in local currency. And I've plotted the cattle producer price from 2000 to 2012. And I think we can see that all the prices are catching up. And I think this is a very important trend. And you can see that the gap between 2009 gap between the lowest price and the highest price, and 2011 between the highest and the lowest price, the gap was $2,700. The gap now is just anymore $1,000. So the gap has reduced by around 60% since 2009. And I think that is really quite an important figures. So you've got a very clear coming together of national cattle price since 2009, and it's aiming in the same direction. Back to the dairy, very quickly. What I've put there is the price paid to farmers, and you've got three lines. You've got the blue one, which is the farm gate milk price in New Zealand. Then you've got the red one, which is USA, and then the green one, which is Germany. And you see that before 2007, the three prices were absolutely not correlated. They were not the same. Low price in New Zealand, high price USA and Germany. After 2007, something has happened. And now what you've got is at the end of 2011, what you are seeing is more or less price paid to farmers in Germany, in New Zealand, or in the US are the same. And I think that is a very important point. That means that you've got a clear correlation between the price paid to farmers in Germany and the export market for skim milk or whole milk powder in New Zealand. It means that prices are completely nowadays unrelated to cost, but are related to international trade. This is not happening at the moment on the meat sector, but that will happen. If you look at the same graph for pig, and here you've got the traditional exporter, and you can see that the gap was lower than for the cattle, but the gap was around 670 in 2003, more or less the same in 2009, and in 2011 it's just 300. So the gap has been narrowed by 50% over that period. And there is only one exception, is when you look to Russia and China. But I think this is mainly due to countries where you've got constraints of imports by the government, and you've got a really high unsatisfied demand in these countries, which can't be satisfied because you've got import quota. But you will see that in the future also these prices will move together as soon as this national demand will be satisfied. We are speaking about pork price, so it's always interesting also to go to the feed. So here I've plotted the CBOT and Matif maize price, and also there it's very important to understand that even these two prices on both sides of the Atlantic moving together after 2007, and there is a clear correlation also there. And you can see it from 2008 till 2011. You've got an absolutely clear correlation of 0.92 between these two prices, and they are strongly correlated, they are moving together, and they are moving closer and closer. So the gap is closing also between the two sides of the Atlantic concerning the feed. You are paying for your pork. So, what does really drive meat price today? Here I've tried to see if there were a link between export price and volumes. And what I've plotted here is the USA monthly export of swing cuts, frozen, 2.7, 2.12. And you can see the correlation, and it's, you can see it here. Absolutely no correlation between price and volume. You do it also with Brazil, and the correlation is even lower because it's 0.03, so it means absolutely no correlation between export price and volume. So really what we can say that it's, we can forget the idea that export prices have much to do with volume exported. They are nearly all demand driven. It's just a supply and demand that make the price. And then we go to the major factor that have been affecting our business, and that's oil. And here I've plotted the oil price till 2004 up to 2012, beginning of 2012. And you can see that you've got the first oil rise, 2008, the first fall, the second oil rise, and at the moment no clear direction. It's up and down, up and down. And it's interesting to see that in 2008, this oil price have dragged up and then down most of the commodity we are seeing in the market. And if we superpose the peak carcass price, so there you've got in blue USA, in red Brazil, and in green you've got the EU prices, there you can see that for 2008 there were a clear correlation with oil price, and then something happened after because they only sort of follow one to the other, and sometimes they follow oil, sometimes they don't. And I just want to mention a special point on the EU price, and you can see that in 2008, clearly following the oil price, and then absolutely detached from oil price in the next period. And this is a clear indication of the very special fragmented structure of supply and demand here in the EU. If you do the same graph with cattle, and this is for US cattle, there you see you've got a clear correlation between cattle and oil price. So there you've got really big differences between a pig and cattle. Let's have a look now, and this is again oil price. And I've had on this oil price the maize price, and you can see clearly correlated. And keep in mind that these are the two main inputs, or the two main costs on a farm. And you can see that there is a huge volatility and a huge correlation between these two prices over the time. And if you add on that the EU price, US cattle and EU cattle, and then you add another point, which is the Italian ham. And for me, I've taken Italian ham as a main product made with our meat. It's a finished product. And the first observation is all of these prices are, call it, impervious to the price of oil. They are not moving, really. And if you look at the volatility of oil, of maize, or the volatility of the EU pig, EU cattle, or the ham in Italy, you can see that inputs volatility is at least 6 times higher than the outputs. That's a very important point because when you are on a farm and the cost is having this high and huge volatility, but your selling price is not having that volatility, is not able to absorb the fact that it's going up and going down all the time. So if you stay on that graph, and just to see what could be the consequence of that kind of volatility we're seeing here, and it's like being seated on a volcano. And you can see that all maize going up, down, huge volatility, where the EU pig price, EU cattle, and US cattle are not moving. Even the Italian ham is not really moving. So I think that for as long as we're going to see these huge swings in price, and volatility will continue to be there, I think we are obliged to believe that producer will have to get larger, producer will have to get more sophisticated in the future in order to absorb some of this volatility. And in long term, larger meat companies, we're going to see more and more larger meat companies who are going to be able to pass to the final consumer these swings we are seeing in the input cost. So what is the answer? And yeah, you were going to have the yellow one, so I need to hurry up a little bit. So what is the answer? And if we come back to the question I was asking at the beginning, are we indeed moving towards a world reference pig price for pig meat and beef? I think the answer is yes. And we've seen that export and producer price already coming together. And we've seen that even in countries like China, even in countries like Russia, for pig price, even if you've got very high price not related to the international price, you will see that in the future, as soon as the demand, inside demand, national demand will be satisfied, also this price will tend to move in the same direction. And I think that this trend of moving together will be accelerated in times of dramatic price change, either up or down, and particularly as the market price become more transparent. But I think there is a problem. As I told you, with meat there is always a but. It's far too easy otherwise. And it's not that simple. And the problem is world meat are still far from what I call efficient, and there are still many spanners in the works. And some of them are large-scale protection against imports, or even occasionally for exports, against export. Meat markets are still far from transparent. Meat is still largely an unstandard product. I think this is a key point. On dairy, it's very easy. You've got standardized product, so it's easy to have an auction for skim milk, whole milk. Everybody speaks about the same thing. How many cuts have you got for a pork? How many cuts have you got for a cattle? And they are really different, even on a regional basis. And then you've got a lot of what we call act of gods, and that will continue to have a major impact on local and regional prices. So just to conclude, so it would appear that identical price, both for slaughter animals or carcasses or cuts, are not for tomorrow. I think, but as the consumer and the further processor demand become more sophisticated, and as also, and as it's been said by the minister before, the global free trade become a reality, then you will get a reference global price and not just an identical price. And reference price already exists in the dairy sector, and this is where you are aiming at in the meat sector. The question is not going to be today, but it will be maybe tomorrow or after tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Christophe, for a very interesting presentation. And now we know that Chira is not a one-man band, and he concluded his talk by mentioning the consumer. We have been told for a long time that the key to a good business is understanding the consumer. So we're taking that very much to heart here this morning, because not only is our next speaker herself a consumer, she's also a king. And Helen King is working with Bord Bia. She has been heading the Insight and Innovation Department of Bord Bia for a number of years, and has fostered and guided many Irish brand successes. And I think in the process she has helped further Ireland's standing as a premium exporter of food and drink products. I know all that because I've worked with Helen in a previous life, and I now want to ask her to come to the podium on her topic, Understanding the Consumer for Effective Marketing.